Okay, just finishing up the 10 a.m. turn. In fact, we can move this to 10:20. And things are getting a little more heated over on the left flank here, as one of these, the big Russian division that was guarding Zakharina, has shifted over to try and put pressure on the left flank of my fairly small division. I think that's a 1st Corps 3rd Division there, Gerard's division. You can see him, whoops, see him there. So kind of dicey for them. Their goal was to try and knock off some of these guns up there on the heights, something that they've failed now for 2 turns in a row to do, while taking copious casualties themselves. So it's questionable how long they will remain there. Fortunately, the position in which they would fall back to is well defended by a large 4th Corps division and a grand battery, as well as still cavalry hiding out on the flank, and now some cavalry is coming in, and I forget whose cavalry division that is, but some of the 3rd Cavalry Corps is moving up through Borodino to assist the cavalry and the infantry there on the left flank. Along the Great Redoubt line, more of the same, as units just stand and fire at each other. There is kind of a gap there along the corner of the Russian line. The problem being that if that Russian regiment there, that 4th Corps Russian regiment, ends up breaking and retreating, there's a grand battery of Russian artillery waiting just to fire through the gap at my infantry. So, to be determined what to do there. Fortunately, though, if I do get through that gap, that causes real problems for that Russian right. I would have to shift back in order to avoid having infantry possibly moving in behind it. The Great Redoubt still holding, and the guns have shifted and cleared out the space to the right of the Great Redoubt. I've got skirmishers there at the moment absorbing cannonballs until the rest of the infantry can either put enough pressure on the adjoining lines to the Great Redoubt to isolate it, or, well, that's all they have to do. The Italians finally began their assault to the left of the Great Redoubt, and both achieved no results, but that's better than them disordering and or routing. The determination now will be whether to move in the rest of the Italians and also assault along the line, since those guys are now in square. They went into square because of the threat of the Italian cavalry charging with the Italian infantry in the assault. I was able to successfully scare some of them into going into square, which would make them tempting assault targets for the Italian infantry. But there is also plenty of cavalry here along with the Italians. Some more 3rd Cavalry Corps, entire division of the 3rd Cavalry Corps, there with the Italians to potentially support any assault. What they are lacking there is artillery. There's no good way to get artillery onto this plain in front of the Great Redoubt, hence they're going to have to do it without guns. Speaking of guns, in the center here, if I can shoot around the glare, you can see there's a massive grand battery now finally assembled and slowly prolonging its way across the field. It'll be able to make it pretty far until it reaches those various ravines there in the middle of the field. They are now close enough to start doing some damage to the Bagration Fléchés. And you can see that little stack of disordered guys out in front of the Fléchés. That would be Murat and his 1 cavalry battalion, or 1 cavalry regiment. Because I rolled the Murat's impetuous charge random event, so he had to go tearing off and assault these guns along the heights here, which caused a leader casualty that I fortunately dodged a bullet and did not lose Murat. In fact, nothing happened. My opponent rolled a 65 to cause the leader casualty, but on the leader casualty table I ended up rolling a no result. So I got lucky. But he will get shot at again, and that cavalry regiment will probably end up being eliminated. which would actually be good because then Murat and his leaders can just run themselves back to friendly lines, where, as you can see here, most of the infantry in the center is still holding as the Grand Assault, as the Grand Battery continues their artillery barrage on the Russian center. Over on the right, Poniatowski's 5th Corps has finally moved up, completed their administrative march, and are now deploying in front of Utitsa. I've finally been able to get some cannon aiming at Utitsa, who've inflicted, I think, 1 hit on one of the units defending Utitsa there. I've got more guns still to bring up, so can hopefully start putting some meaningful artillery fire onto Utitsa and maybe dislodge that Russian left and get it to displace a little bit back behind the town. If I can keep pushing it, that will disengage it from the Russian center line, which can hopefully provide me with some more strategic possibilities. So that is where things stand at the end of the 10 a.m. turn.